The warning alarm screamed through the Valthani Empire's most secret monitoring station, floating in the darkness between star systems. Commander Thexmore had been drinking his morning stimulant when the first readings came in. Now 3 hours later, he was still staring at the impossible data on his screens. The ship that had triggered their sensors was moving faster than anything should be able to move. Not just fast for its size, but fast in a way that broke the basic rules of physics that every civilization in the galaxy followed. The energy coming from this mysterious vessel was so strange that their computers kept giving error messages. "Commander, you need to see this," called out his chief analyst, a nervous young officer named Pexter. His tentacles were shaking as he pointed at the detailed scans. "Look at this ship's design, it makes no sense at all." Thexmore moved closer to examine the readings. What he saw made his 4 eyes widen in confusion. The outer hull of the ship looked rough and simple, like something a primitive species might hammer together in a basic workshop. But the energy readings from inside the ship suggested technology that was hundreds of years more advanced than anything the mighty Valthani Empire had ever created. "This has to be some kind of mistake," Thexmore muttered, his voice echoing in the command center. "Run the scans again. Check every sensor twice." But Pextar shook his head. "Sir, I already ran the scans 5 times. The readings are identical every time. And, Commander, there's something else. 3 other monitoring stations in nearby sectors are picking up the same thing. They're all reporting identical energy signatures." The commander felt a chill run through his scaled skin. 1 station making an error was possible. 4 stations making the exact same error was impossible. This ship, whatever it was real. Within an hour, the report had reached the highest levels of the Valthani Empire. The xenobiologists, the scientists who studied alien species, were called in to examine the data. After heated discussions and complex calculations, they reached a conclusion that satisfied everyone. "It's obviously a derelict ship from an ancient race," announced Chief Xenobiologist Morthek to the assembled officials. "Some civilization that died out thousands of years ago must have built this vessel. It's been drifting through space ever since, probably damaged and empty." This explanation made perfect sense to the Empire's leaders. Throughout their history, they had discovered the ruins of civilizations that had risen and fallen long before the Valthani had even learned to build spaceships. Finding an ancient vessel with mysterious technology would be remarkable, but not impossible. "We must capture this ship immediately," ordered High Admiral Zethkol. "The technology inside could advance our empire by centuries. Send our fastest ships to intercept it before it drifts into another sector." Meanwhile, aboard the human vessel Sovereign, Captain Minho was having a very different conversation with his crew. The bridge of their ship was smaller and more cramped than the spacious command centers of the Valthani Empire, but it hummed with efficient activity. "Captain, we've got multiple alien ships moving toward our position," reported Navigator So Young, her fingers dancing across her control panel. The young woman had served on deep space missions for 3 years, but this was her first potential contact with an unknown alien species. Engineer Jamin looked up from his repair work on a damaged console. "Their technology is interesting, Captain. Advanced in some ways, but they seem to rely on brute force rather than efficiency. Their ships are much bigger than they need to be." Captain Minho nodded thoughtfully. He was a calm man in his early 40s, with graying hair and steady hands that had guided ships through dangerous situations many times before. But this situation was unlike anything he had faced. "What are they transmitting?" he asked his communications officer. "Nothing directed at us, sir. But we're picking up their internal communications. They seem to think our ship is some kind of ancient artifact. They don't believe it could belong to any currently living species." Minho almost smiled at this. Humans had been exploring space for less than 200 years, making them newcomers compared to most galactic civilizations. But in that short time, they had developed technology that focused on solving problems rather than showing off power. "They're in for quite a surprise," muttered So Young, checking the approach vectors of the alien ships. Jamin finished his repairs and returned to his main station. "Captain, should we try to communicate with them? Let them know we're not an empty ship?" Minho considered this carefully. First contact with a new alien species was always dangerous. These aliens clearly had powerful military forces, and they were approaching with what looked like capture in mind. If they discovered that humans were responsible for technology they couldn't understand, they might react with fear or aggression. Not yet, Minho decided. Let's see what they do first. Sometimes it's better to let others reveal their intentions before showing your own cards. The crew of the Sovereign prepared for what would become one of the most significant moments in human history. They were about to make contact with an alien empire that had ruled over dozens of star systems for thousands of years. An empire that was absolutely convinced that humans couldn't possibly be advanced enough to build the ship they were flying. As the alien vessels drew closer, their massive hulls blocking out the stars, Captain Minho and his crew waited to see just how wrong the Valthani Empire could be about the species they had never bothered to notice before. Admiral Velthara was not the kind of leader who sent others to do important work while she stayed safely behind. When the reports of the mysterious ancient vessel reached her command ship, she immediately ordered her personal fleet to intercept it. This was potentially the greatest archaeological discovery in Empire history, and she wanted to be there personally when they captured it. Her fleet consisted of 12 of the Empire's most advanced interceptor ships, each one capable of destroying entire planets if necessary. These vessels had never failed to capture their target, and Velthara was confident this mission would be just as successful as all the others. "Admiral, we're approaching the target vessel," reported her tactical officer. "It's maintaining a steady course and speed. No signs of defensive systems activating." Velthara studied the strange ship on her main screen. Even from this distance, she could see how odd it looked. The hull appeared to be made from some kind of metal that looked almost crude, but their sensors were still detecting impossible energy readings from within. "Probably some kind of automated system keeping it running," she muttered to herself. These ancient races were known for building ships that could operate for thousands of years without maintenance. But as her fleet moved closer, something unexpected happened. The mysterious vessel suddenly changed direction with a sharpness that made Velthara's eyes widen in shock. The ship turned 90 degrees in less than 2 seconds, then accelerated to a speed that should have been impossible for any vessel of its size. "How is it moving like that?" demanded the Admiral, her voice rising with surprise. Her science officer, a brilliant young Valthani named Kextor, was frantically checking his readings. "Admiral, the G-forces from those maneuvers should have turned any organic crew into liquid. Even our best pilots couldn't survive acceleration like that." The mysterious ship continued to perform maneuvers that defied everything the Empire knew about space travel. It spun, twisted and changed direction with the grace of a dancer, but at speeds that would kill any living creature inside. "It must be completely automated," Velthara concluded. "No wonder it's been drifting for so long. The crew died thousands of years ago, and only the ship's computer systems are still working." But then something happened that changed everything. The ship's communication system activated, and a voice spoke in clear galactic standard, the common language used by all civilized species. "This is Captain Minho of the United Earthship Sovereign. You have entered human space. State your business here." The bridge of Velthara's command ship went completely silent. Every officer stared at the communication panel as if it had just spoken in an impossible language, which, in a way, it had. Did that ship just claim to have a living crew?" whispered Kextor. Velthara's mind raced. A living crew was impossible. No organic being could survive the maneuvers they had just witnessed. But the voice had sounded completely real, not like any artificial intelligence they had ever encountered. "Get me the linguistics department immediately," she ordered. Within minutes, the Empire's best language experts were examining the transmission. They ran the word human through every database they had, searching through records of thousands of known species across the galaxy. The result was always the same: nothing. "Admiral, there is no species called human in any of our records," reported Chief Linguist Hexmara. "The word doesn't appear in any known language or species registry. It's as if this human race simply doesn't exist." Back at High Command, the senior officials were equally baffled. Emergency meetings were called, and the Empire's greatest minds debated what they had just heard. It's obviously a deception, declared High Admiral Zethkul. Some scavenger species found this ancient ship and is trying to trick us into thinking they built it. They probably don't even know how to operate most of its systems. But, sir, interrupted Intelligence Chief Larthon, the voice claimed this was human space. If they're just scavengers, why would they try to claim territory? Because that's what primitive species do, Zethkul replied dismissively. They find something they don't understand and immediately try to use it to make themselves seem more important than they are. This explanation satisfied most of the High Command. It made sense that a less advanced species might stumble upon ancient technology and try to use it to intimidate their betters. The Empire had encountered similar situations before, though never with technology quite this advanced. Meanwhile, aboard the Sovereign, Communications Officer Hye Jin was listening to the alien chatter with growing amusement. She had been monitoring their communications since the first ships appeared, and their conversations were revealing. "Captain, you're not going to believe what they're saying," she reported to Minho. "They think we're some kind of scavenger species that found this ship, floating in space. They're convinced we don't actually know how to build or properly operate it." Captain Minho raised an eyebrow. "Scavengers? That's certainly an interesting assumption." "It gets better," Hye Jin continued. "They're debating whether to destroy us or capture us. They seem to think we're trying to claim territory with stolen technology." Navigator So Young looked up from her station. "Should we correct their misconceptions, Captain?" Minho considered this carefully. The approaching alien fleet was massive and heavily armed. If these aliens were hostile, revealing humanity's true capabilities too early might provoke an attack. On the other hand, they had already made contact and the aliens seemed more curious than immediately aggressive. Let them think what they want for now, he decided. Sometimes the best way to understand someone is to let them reveal their true nature first. Engineer Jae-min was monitoring the alien ships with his sensors. "Captain, their technology is impressive, but inefficient. They rely on massive power systems, where we would use more elegant solutions. Their ships are at least 3 times larger than they need to be for their actual capabilities." "Interesting," Minho mused. "They build for intimidation rather than efficiency." The standoff continued, with the alien fleet maintaining their distance while their commanders debated what to do about the mysterious ship and its impossible crew. Neither side was ready to make the first aggressive move, but both were learning valuable lessons about their potential enemies. What the Valthani Empire didn't realize was that they were about to discover just how wrong they could be about a species they had never bothered to notice before. First Admiral Kethaval was known throughout the Valthani Empire as a leader who solved problems with overwhelming force. When the reports reached him about strange scavengers claiming to own ancient technology, he decided this situation required his personal attention. 3 massive battlecruisers launched from the Empire's nearest military base, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy entire fleets. "This is ridiculous," Kethaval growled to his officers as they approached the mysterious vessel. "Some primitive species finds an ancient ship and suddenly thinks they can claim territory in our space. We'll show them what real power looks like." His battle cruisers were truly impressive sights. Each ship was over 2 kilometers long, bristling with weapons and protected by energy shields that could withstand direct hits from small moons. The combined firepower of his 3 ships could reduce planets to asteroids. Surely, any reasonable species would surrender immediately when faced with such obvious military superiority. But as they drew closer to the human ship, something completely unexpected happened. Without any visible weapons firing, without any energy beams or missiles launching, all 3 battlecruisers suddenly went dark. Every weapon system, every targeting computer, every offensive capability they possessed simply stopped working. "What just happened?" Kethaval demanded, his voice echoing through the suddenly quiet bridge. His chief engineer, a veteran named Morgek, was frantically checking his systems. "Sir, all our weapons are offline. Not damaged, not destroyed, just turned off. It's like someone reached into our computers and flipped a switch." "That's impossible," Kethaval snarled. "Our systems are protected by the most advanced security in the galaxy. No one can just hack into our ships." But the evidence was undeniable. 3 of the Empire's most powerful warships had been rendered completely harmless without a single shot being fired. The mysterious vessel hadn't even seemed to try very hard. "Sir," called out his communications officer, "the unknown ship is requesting visual contact." Kethaval's pride was wounded, but he was also intensely curious. What kind of advanced species had they encountered? The technology required to disable his ship so easily suggested a civilization far more advanced than anything in the Empire's records. "Put them through," he ordered. "I want to see what we're dealing with." The main view screen flickered to life, and for a moment, Kethaval thought there had been some kind of mistake. Instead of the expected image of some highly advanced alien species, he found himself looking at what appeared to be one of the most primitive creatures he had ever seen. The being on the screen was bipedal, like many species, but it looked incredibly fragile. Its skin was soft and pale, without any natural armor or protective scales. It had only 2 eyes instead of the 4 or 6 that most intelligent species possessed. Its limbs looked thin and weak, as if they could barely support its own body. "Await! I am Captain Minho," the creature said calmly. "You've entered human space with warships and hostile intentions. I'd like to know why." Kethaval stared in disbelief. This soft, weak-looking creature claimed to be the captain of the most technologically advanced ship his people had ever encountered. It was like claiming that a small insect was capable of building starships. Behind him, he could hear his biologists whispering excitedly to each other. Chief Biologist Hexathara approached his command chair with a tablet full of analysis data. "Admiral, this is incredible," she said, her voice filled with scientific excitement. "According to our evolutionary models, this species should be barely capable of using simple tools. Look at their physical structure. No natural weapons, no protective armor, relatively small brain case compared to their body size. They should still be living in caves and hitting rocks together." Kethaval's confusion was turning into anger. "This is some kind of trick," he declared, pointing at the screen. "You cannot possibly be the builders of that vessel. Your species looks like it just crawled out of the mud. Show me your true masters immediately." On the Sovereign's bridge, Captain Minho felt his patience beginning to wear thin. He had spent his entire career dealing with difficult situations, but this level of arrogance was unusual, even by military standards. Chief Science Officer Da-Un looked up from her console, where she had been monitoring the alien ship's scanning attempts. "Captain, their computers are running continuous biological analysis on our crew. According to their databases, we shouldn't be capable of creating fire, let alone faster-than-light travel." "They're scanning us?" Minho asked, his voice taking on a dangerous edge. "Constantly," Da-Un confirmed. "They seem genuinely convinced that we're some kind of primitive species that found this ship by accident. Their biological models suggest we should have the intelligence level of small animals." Navigator So Young turned from her station. "Captain, they're not taking us seriously at all. Their military formations are designed to intimidate primitive species, not to defend against actual threats." Engineer Jae-min was monitoring the alien ship's power systems. "Their technology is impressive in terms of raw power, but it's incredibly inefficient. They use brute force where we would use precision. It's like they never learned that bigger doesn't always mean better." Minho studied the alien admiral on his screen. Kethaval was clearly frustrated and confused, but also dismissive. The alien's body language suggested he considered humans to be nothing more than an annoying pest that had stumbled onto something they didn't understand. "Captain," Communications Officer Hae-jin reported, "I'm monitoring their internal communications. They're debating whether to destroy us or capture us for study. They keep referring to us as the primitive scavengers and discussing how to find our real masters." That was the final straw. Minho had tried to be diplomatic, had attempted to handle this first contact situation with patience and professionalism. But these aliens were not only refusing to take humanity seriously, they were actively planning to attack or capture his ship. "Then perhaps," Minho said quietly, his voice carrying a tone that his crew had learned to recognize as dangerous, "it's time we showed them exactly what humans are capable of." Da-Un smiled grimly from her station. "What did you have in mind?" "Captain, something that will get their attention," Minho replied, "and make them realize that underestimating humanity is a very dangerous mistake." The crew of the Sovereign began preparing for a demonstration that would shatter everything the Valthani Empire thought they knew about the universe. The aliens were about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous enemies are the ones you never see coming. Captain Minho had reached his limit with the aliens' arrogant attitude. These Valthani considered humans to be nothing more than primitive scavengers, incapable of building the technology they commanded. It was time to correct that dangerous misconception in a way they would never forget. Communications, open a channel to Admiral Subin, Minho ordered quietly. Heejin's fingers moved across her control panel. Channel open, Captain. The Admiral is standing by. Subin, we need a full demonstration. These aliens refuse to believe we built our own ships. They think we're cave dwellers who found ancient technology. From the flagship of the human fleet, positioned just beyond the edge of the star system where alien sensors couldn't detect them, Admiral Subin's voice came through clearly. Understood, Minho. How dramatic do you want this to be? Minho looked at the alien ships on his screen, their massive hulls designed more for intimidation than efficiency. Dramatic enough that they never underestimate humanity again. Copy that. Beginning decloak sequence now. What happened next would haunt first Admiral Ketherval's dreams for the rest of his life. Space itself seemed to shimmer and bend around his fleet. Then, one by one, human ships began to appear out of nowhere. First, a sleek destroyer materialized off his starboard side, its hull gleaming with technology the Empire had never seen before. Then another appeared to port, followed by a cruiser. That seemed to bend light around its edges. Within 30 seconds, dozens of human vessels had surrounded the 3 Valthani battle cruisers. Impossible, whispered Morgek, Ketherval's chief engineer. Our sensors showed empty space. Nothing can hide from our detection systems. But the humans weren't finished. The largest ship Ketherval had ever seen began to materialize directly in front of his fleet. The vessel was enormous, but unlike the bulky, intimidating design of Empire ships, this one was elegant and purposeful. Every line of its construction spoke of advanced engineering that prioritized function over appearance. This is Admiral Subin of the United Earth ship Indomitable, came a calm female voice over the communication channel. Captain Minho tells me you have some doubts about human capabilities. Ketherval found his voice with difficulty. Your ships, how did they hide from our sensors? Hide? Subin sounded genuinely puzzled. We weren't hiding. We were simply using basic stealth technology. Every human ship has been equipped with cloaking systems for the past 50 years. Basic technology. The Empire's most advanced scientists had been trying to develop effective cloaking for centuries, and these humans called it basic. But Admiral Subin wasn't done demonstrating human capabilities. I understand you're having trouble accepting that we built these ships ourselves. Perhaps a small demonstration would help. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Subin nodded to her tactical officer. Yonsu, show them what we can do with gravity. Manipulation. Tactical Officer Yonsu was a young woman who had graduated at the top of her class from the Earth Naval Academy. She had been looking forward to this moment since they first detected the alien fleet. Yes, Admiral. Targeting. The asteroid field. The local asteroid field contained hundreds of rocks, ranging from small boulders to chunks of stone the size of buildings. They drifted randomly through space, following the chaotic patterns that had been established millions of years ago when this system first formed. What happened next made every alien on every ship stare in complete shock. The asteroids began to move. Not quickly, not violently, but with perfect precision. One by one, they glided through space as if guided by invisible hands. Within minutes, the randomly scattered field had been transformed into a perfect geometric pattern, a 3-dimensional spiral that would have been beautiful in any art gallery. Gravity manipulation, breathed Chief Biologist Hexathara aboard Ketherval's ship. They're controlling gravity itself. The Empire's greatest physicists had spent generations trying to understand gravity well enough to manipulate it. Their theoretical papers claimed it might be possible in another 1,000 years of research. These humans were doing it casually, as if it were no more difficult than moving furniture. But Yonsu wasn't finished. With another adjustment to her controls, she began rearranging the asteroids again. This time, they formed letters in the Empire's own language, spelling out a message that floated in space for all to see. Greetings from humanity. Tactical Officer Jin Woo aboard Kethaval's flagship felt his 4 legs go weak beneath him. He had served in the Empire's military for 20 years, had seen their greatest technological achievements, had witnessed the power of their most advanced weapons. Nothing in his experience had prepared him for what he was seeing now. "Admiral," he whispered, his voice barely audible, "they're playing with the fundamental forces of the universe like they're toys." Kethaval's mind was struggling to process what he was witnessing. Everything he thought he knew about the galaxy, about technology, about the Empire's place in the universe, was crumbling around him. These creatures that looked like they should be hunting small animals with pointed sticks were demonstrating mastery over physics that his people could barely comprehend. "How?" he whispered, the word escaping his lips before he could stop it. Captain Minho's voice came through the communication channel, calm and patient, but with an edge of steel underneath. "You assumed weakness where you should have recognized strength, Admiral Kethaval." "We may not look like your people," added Admiral Subin from her massive dreadnought. "We may not have your scales, or your extra eyes, or your impressive size, but we survived on a world that tried to kill us every single day. We learned to solve problems with our minds because we couldn't solve them with brute force." Engineer Jamin's voice joined the conversation from the Sovereign. "While your people were perfecting existing technology, we were inventing entirely new approaches. You built bigger ships, we built smarter ships. Navigator." So Young added her own perspective. "You see our soft skin and think we're weak, but soft skin means we had to be clever to survive. And clever species learn to build things that others think are impossible." First Admiral Kethaval realized that everything his empire believed about themselves, about their superiority, about their place in the galaxy, had just been proven wrong by a species they had never even heard of. The humans weren't scavengers who had found ancient technology. They were builders of technology so advanced that it made the Empire's greatest achievements look like primitive tools. The age of Vailthani, dominance, was over. The age of humanity had just begun. Captain Minho could see the confusion and fear in the alien admiral's eyes. Kethaval's entire understanding of the universe had just been turned upside down, and now it was time to explain the truth about humanity. The truth that would change everything the Vailthani Empire thought they knew about their place in the galaxy. "You want to know how we built ships like this?" Minho asked, his voice carrying across the communication channel to every alien vessel in the area. "You want to understand how a species that looks weak to you could develop technology that makes your greatest achievements seem primitive?" Kethaval nodded slowly, unable to speak. His scientific curiosity was fighting with his military pride, and curiosity was winning. "The answer is simple," Minho continued. "We come from a world that spent millions of years trying to kill us." On the bridge of the Sovereign, Chief Science Officer Da-Un pulled up holographic displays showing Earth's history. Images of massive storms, volcanic eruptions, ice ages and asteroid impacts filled the space between the human and alien ships. "This is our homeworld," Da-Un explained, her voice filled with quiet pride. "We call it Earth. For most of our planet's history, it was a death trap. Massive volcanoes that could destroy entire continents, ice ages that lasted for thousands of years, asteroid impacts that wiped out entire species. And that's just the large-scale disasters. The images changed to show Earth's wildlife. Predators with massive teeth and claws, poisonous creatures that could kill with a single bite, diseases that could wipe out entire populations in weeks. Every single day, our ancestors faced threats that would have destroyed most species," Minho added. "We had no natural armor like your people, no claws or fangs, no thick skin to protect us from the elements. We survived because we learned to think our way out of problems." Navigator So Young joined the explanation. "When winter came and food became scarce, we didn't just endure it. We learned to make fire, to build shelters, to preserve food. When predators hunted us, we didn't just run, we made tools and weapons. When diseases threatened to wipe us out, we didn't just accept it," added Engineer Jamin. "We studied the diseases, learned how they worked, and developed medicines to fight them." Admiral Subin's voice came from the massive dreadnought. Every challenge that could have destroyed us instead made us stronger. We learned that there's always a solution if you're clever enough to find it. Kethval was beginning to understand, but the full implications were still sinking in. You're saying your entire species was forged by constant danger? Exactly, Minho confirmed. While your empire spent thousands of years perfecting existing technology, making it bigger and more powerful, we spent our time learning to innovate. We had to. Innovation wasn't a luxury for us, it was survival. But the revelations were just beginning. Intelligence specialist Yunji stepped forward on the Sovereign's bridge, her expression serious. Admiral Kethval, there's something else. You need to know, she said. We've been watching your empire for decades. The words hit the alien fleet like a physical blow. Every officer on every ship felt a chill run through their bodies. Watching us? Kethval managed to ask. Your invincible fleets, Yunji continued, accessing files that made the alien admiral's worst fears come true. Your impregnable worlds, your secret military bases, your trade routes, your political structures. We've studied every single aspect of your civilization. Communications officer Sunwoo began transmitting data that made Kethval's blood run cold. Detailed blueprints of Valthani ships appeared on the alien screens. Maps of their military installations, complete with security protocols and defensive weaknesses. Intelligence reports on their political leaders, their military strategies, their economic systems. This is impossible, whispered Morgek, staring at a perfect schematic of his own ship's engine room. These are classified beyond the highest security levels. Your security systems are impressive, Sunwoo acknowledged, but they're designed to keep out species that think like you do. They never anticipated someone who approaches problems the way humans do. The data kept coming. Every major empire installation had been mapped, analyzed, and quietly compromised by human reconnaissance. Their most secret research facilities, their hidden military bases, even the private communications of their highest-ranking officials had been monitored and recorded. You've been spying on us for decades, Kethval said, his voice hollow with shock. Not spying, corrected Captain Minho. Learning. When we first detected your empire's existence, we did what humans always do when we encounter something new. We studied it. We wanted to understand who you were, what you were capable of, whether you posed a threat to our people. And your conclusion? Kethval asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to hear the answer. That you're not evil, Minho replied honestly. Your empire has its flaws like any civilization, but you're not inherently hostile. You're just limited in your thinking. Admiral Subin's voice carried a note of gentle criticism. You became so focused on maintaining your power that you stopped innovating. You perfected the art of building bigger ships, stronger weapons, thicker armor, but you forgot how to think in new ways. We never forgot, added Dayun, because we couldn't afford to. On our world, the species that stopped adapting went extinct, so we kept learning, kept innovating, kept pushing the boundaries of what was possible. The full scope of humanity's capabilities was becoming clear to Kethval. They hadn't just built advanced ships, they had completely revolutionized the way technology could be developed and used. While the Empire had spent centuries perfecting gravity engines, humans had learned to manipulate gravity itself. While the Empire had built better armor, humans had developed shields that could turn matter into energy. Your people, Kethval said slowly, you're not just more advanced than us, you think in completely different ways. That's exactly right, Minho confirmed. We don't just ask, how can we make this bigger or stronger? We ask, how can we make this work better? We don't just improve existing solutions, we invent entirely new approaches. The first admiral's worldview was crumbling around him. His entire life had been built on the assumption that the Valthani Empire was the most advanced civilization in the galaxy, that their technology was unmatched, their military unbeatable, their intelligence superior to all other species. Now, he was discovering that there was an entire human civilization that had been quietly watching them, studying them, learning about them, all while developing technology that made the Empire's greatest achievements look like children's toys. Franda 4. Age of Valthani superiority was ending. The age of humanity had already begun. and the Empire had never even noticed. The silence that followed the revelation of human capabilities stretched across space like a heavy blanket. First, Admiral Kethval stared at the displays showing decades of human surveillance on his empire, his mind struggling to process the magnitude of what he had just learned. Everything he had believed about the galaxy's power structure had been shattered in a matter of hours. Admiral Subin's voice broke the silence, calm and measured, but carrying an authority that made every alien officer listen carefully. "Admiral, Kethval, we've shown you what humanity is capable of. Now it's time to discuss what happens next." The human fleet maintained their positions around the Vailthani vessels, not threatening, but clearly demonstrating their overwhelming advantage. Each human ship represented technology that the Empire couldn't match, piloted by beings they had completely underestimated. "We didn't reveal ourselves to intimidate you," Subin continued. "We revealed ourselves because your empire was becoming a problem. Your expansion into this sector of space would eventually bring you into conflict with human colonies. We prefer to solve problems before they become wars." Kethval found his voice, though it came out weaker than he intended. What do you want from us?" "Simple," Admiral Subin replied. "Recognition that humanity exists as an equal power in this galaxy, establishment of formal diplomatic relations, agreement on territorial boundaries that both our civilizations can respect." Captain Minho's voice joined the conversation from the Sovereign. "We're offering you the same thing we've offered every other species we've encountered. The chance to be neighbors instead of enemies." "Every other species?" Kethval asked, a new wave of shock washing over him. "The Vailthani Empire isn't the first advanced civilization we've made contact with," explained Communications Officer He Jin. "Over the past 50 years, we've established diplomatic relations with 17 different species. Most of them had the same reaction you're having right now," Navigator So Young added. "The difference is most of them were smart enough to accept our offer of friendship instead of trying to capture our ships." Kethval's tactical officer, Jin Wu, was still staring at the displays showing human surveillance data. "You could have destroyed us at any time," he said quietly. "Why didn't you?" "Because that's not who we are," Captain Minho answered firmly. "Humans prefer cooperation to conquest. We've learned that working together produces better results than fighting. But make no mistake, we will defend ourselves if we have to." Admiral Subin's tone became slightly more serious. "Your empire has a choice to make, Admiral Kethval. You can accept humanity as an equal partner in this galaxy, establish trade agreements, share scientific knowledge and benefit from peaceful coexistence, or you can continue to view us as a threat to be eliminated." "And if we choose the second option?" Kethval asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Then you'll discover that underestimating humanity is a very dangerous mistake," Subin replied simply. "We've spent decades studying your military capabilities, every weakness, every tactical doctrine, every strategic limitation. If you force us into a war, it will be a very short one." The implications were terrifying. The Empire's military had never faced an enemy that understood them better than they understood themselves. Every battle plan, every defensive strategy, every secret weapon had been observed and analyzed by human intelligence officers. Chief Science Officer Da-Un provided the final piece of the puzzle. "We don't want your territory, Admiral. We don't want to rule your people or destroy your civilization. We just want to make sure our species can coexist peacefully. Your people need not fear us," Captain Minho assured the shaken alien commander. "We have no interest in conquest or domination, but neither should you underestimate us again. Today's demonstration was a gentle introduction to human capabilities. We have much more advanced technology that we chose not to reveal." Kethval felt another chill at those words. If what they had shown today was considered gentle, what were humans really capable of? "I need to report this to High Command," he said finally. "They won't believe what I tell them." "They will when they see our surveillance data," Communications Officer Sun Wu pointed out. "We have recordings of every conversation in this system, including the ones your commanders thought were private." As if to punctuate the point, the human fleet began preparing to depart. Engineer Hyun-Soo aboard the Sovereign activated systems that made Kethval's eyes widen in amazement. The human ships began to move. but not in any way the Empire had ever seen before. Instead of the familiar sight of engines firing and ships accelerating slowly through space, the human vessels simply shifted. One moment they were surrounding the Valthani fleet, the next moment they were thousands of kilometers away. Then they shifted again, moving distances that should have taken hours in mere seconds. "Impossible," whispered Morgek. "Our sensors can barely track their movement. They're moving faster than light without using hyperspace jumps." "Not faster than light," corrected engineer Hyun Soo over the communication channel. "We're folding space around our ships. Why travel through space when you can make space come to you?" The demonstration was clear. Human ships could appear anywhere, any time, without warning. No defense system in the Empire could protect against enemies who could simply step around physical barriers. First Admiral Kethaval watched the human fleet vanish into the distance, knowing that he was about to carry the most important news in his Empire's history back to the core worlds. The galaxy had just become infinitely larger, more dangerous, and more wondrous than anyone had imagined. "Prepare a message to High Command," he ordered his communications officer. "Priority 1, highest security classification." "What should the message say, sir?" the officer asked. Kethaval looked out at the empty space where the human fleet had been moments before. "Tell them that the Empire is no longer the dominant power in this galaxy. Tell them we've just met our new neighbors, and tell them that everything we thought we knew about the universe was wrong." As his ships began the long journey back to Valthani space, Kethaval realized that he was witnessing the end of one age and the beginning of another. The Empire's reign of assumed superiority was over. Humanity had announced itself to the stars, and the cosmos would never be the same. The age of humanity had begun, and the galaxy would have to learn to live with beings who had turned survival into an art form.